Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Shane Toven joins us. He's been on the show before. We're talking about how to keep FM transmitter sites running, even if you don't see them but once a year. And we're talking about something that could be even more important, and that's smart speakers. How to make sure they sound good and how to make sure that people can find you on smart speakers. It's a different world for engineers and how we can best interact with the companies that we serve on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support online at bgs.cc. By the Ruby console from Lavo. See Lavo in your future at lavo.com/TWiRT. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by the CalRec Type R console system. Type R is a brand new, modular, expandable IP-based radio system from CalRec Audio.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Delighted to be here. Usually, I'm in Nashville at the Telos Alliance studios, but not today. Today I'm on vacation, but I can't stay away from you guys. I mean, look, if you had a co-host like Chris Toven, that you'd want to be here every time, and a guest like the guest that we have today, Shane Toven, you'd want to be here as well. So glad that you've joined us. Yeah, I'm on vacation. It's a beautiful day, and I'm not sure the family is entirely happy with me right now because I said, folks, I gotta go do a show. I'll be out on the veranda, and we'll do the show. So the what you see behind me here, I wanted to do this shot with the camera with me and the real scenery behind me, but not enough light. I mean, not enough light on me. I was in silhouette, despite having our auxiliary light here. So what you're seeing is a reflection off the sliding window, the slide at this little resort we're staying at in Florida. So we're in Palm Beach Shores. So that's where the show is coming to you from today, at least my part. And the cool thing about what Andrew Zarian and what Suncast have set up here with the GFQ network is that we can be anywhere. Suncast usually is anywhere, and so is Chris Toven. So anyway, there we go. That's my howdy for this time. We're going to talk with our guest Shane Toven about some really interesting topics. We got a couple things to cover, and I'm excited to get into that. But right now, let's check in with Chris Toven, my co-host. Chris, welcome in.
Thanks, Kirk. That's a nice backdrop you got there. Nice scenery. It's a good time. If you need to take vacation, we could always do a pre-recorded show of making fun of you while you're on vacation, but that'd be fine.
Well, you might get the idea, Chris, that I don't trust you to do the show, but that's not true. That's not true. People who know me know that me and camera are good friends, and it's hard for me to stay away from one. So. Sorry.
That's quite all right. No, I'm only kidding. That's fine. If the family's okay with it, which I'm sure they are because they're quite busy doing other things, and you'll be paying for it later, but that'll be fine. It'll be good.
They're watching Jurassic World, and I hope they didn't rent that sucker. That's $20 at this resort to rent a movie. I'm not sure.
It's well worth it. It's well worth it while your hours spent on the veranda.
It's well worth it. So where are you coming to us from today?
I'm coming from home, actually. I'm here in New York. It's I spent a day with a sinus issue that is just now fixing itself. So if I suddenly disappear and you hear hacking in the background, it's me trying to figure out what's going on. But yeah. I was working. Problem is, I was doing some work on a rooftop recently, and I think there are a little too many particulates in the air, even though I was wearing a mask. So I think it aggravated my sinuses. Yeah. So, but this weekend I'm going to be out in the woods, so it'll be good. I'm going to have a good time.
So I had a big day yesterday, and by the way, we'll bring our guest in just a minute. But I want to get it. Yeah. So I had an amazing day yesterday, and it was so worthwhile. I scheduled. My wife had told me, "Hey, we're going on a Florida vacation this summer." Okay, great. And in the meanwhile, my friend Whit Adamson over at the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters contacted me and said, "Hey, Kirk, would you be available to speak on some engineering topic during our conference, the TAB, not Texas, but Tennessee Association of Broadcasters conference?" I said, "Sure. Hey, why don't we try to get together another SBE NS workshop? And SBE will help us get, some quality speakers, people that know more than I do, and they'll come speak, and people will get SBE credits." And so they did. Whit and Brenda and their team at the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters worked it out with John Poray and others at the SBE National Office, and they got an SBE and his workshop worked up, and that occurred yesterday in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where the TAB always meets. Well, then Laura, my wife, reminded me about our exact vacation dates. And lo and behold, the TAB conference fell right smack in the middle of vacation. Oh, man, I was in the doghouse then. So I looked at the airline schedules, and it was possible for me to get up at literally 3 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, drive to Fort Lauderdale, catch a flight nonstop from Fort Lauderdale to Nashville, get a ride then over to the TAB conference in Murfreesboro, sit in for part of Wayne Pesina's talk, also for Jeff Welton's talk, and then make my presentation, and then scurry back to the airport and fly back to Fort Lauderdale. 22 and a half hours later, my head hit the bed. So it was a long day yesterday. But I got to tell you, it was a great day seeing the folks at all the engineers from around the Mid-South who come to the TAB, Tennessee Broadcasters Conference in Murfreesboro. It's an annual event, and every few years they do the SBE NS workshop, which is helped coordinated by SBE. So it was very worthwhile. Saw a lot of great people there, and it was great to see Wayne Pesina with SBE. By the way, he's on the ballot to be elected as the next SBE president, and he's unopposed. So chances are good, unless there's a whole lot of write-ins for somebody else. Seems unlikely. So anyway, we'll be talking to Wayne in the future. So that was my day yesterday, and of course, wife and kid found some fun things to do and had a blast, and I was gone all day. By the way, big thanks to Jeff Welton, who picked me up at the airport and drove me to Murfreesboro, and big thanks to Alan Fowler. He's a user of Axia gear, so I know Alan well. He comes to a lot of our SBE meetings, and he gave me a ride back from Murfreesboro to the airport. So I want to shout out to those people. So thanks a lot. That was my day yesterday. Chris, how's your day been?
My day has been fine. It's been good stuff. I mean, yesterday we did have monsoon weather come through, and for a couple of hours yesterday it was pretty bad. Yeah, it came down fast and hard, and the rooftop at the studio, the water was going over the gutter. It was just like running over. It didn't have enough time to get down the spout. I was like, all right, this is going to be a fun day. Well, thankfully, the membrane roof held up. We're in good shape. Yeah.
Well, let's. I'm sorry to yap so much, but I'm so jazzed about yesterday's events and education that went on in Tennessee. Hey, let's bring in our guest, and that is a former colleague of mine. But before he was a colleague, I knew Shane Toven from some work he did in, I believe, Minnesota. And let's bring in our guest, Shane Toven. Today he is in some undisclosed hotel in Idaho. Shane, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech.
Thanks, Kirk. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you. And Shane, let's give a little preview of what you're going to talk about as soon as we hear from our first sponsor. Shane, you have been posting on Facebook a bit more regularly. Two things that I like. First of all, beautiful pictures from some of the amazing mountaintop transmitter sites that you've been visiting. And you've shown us some of those before, but I really appreciate the photos you've been putting on there. Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in awe every time I go out to these sites. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better territory to manage. And I keep thinking to myself, they pay me to do this. They pay me to go out to these mountaintops and just enjoy this beautiful scenery. Okay, maybe fix a transmitter or something else, but while I'm there.
I'm going to be curious to hear some stories about what kind of things you find wrong at these sites that go with no visit for a long time. So I'm eager to hear about that during the show today. But the other thing is you posted a video, kind of a little vlog the other day about your thoughts on smart speakers. And you definitely run across some good thinking on that topic. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Broadcasters for too long have just kind of passively adopted some of these technologies that have come along, but it's time to start looking forward and just, smart speakers are the latest, are kind of the latest disruptive technology that broadcasters really need to be paying attention to. I mean, yeah, okay, you stream, but there's so much more to it than that. I mean, these smart speakers, you have to have a skill so that you can, make your station easy to access. So when you say, hey, Alexa, play whatever, it knows how to play it. So, or hey Google, whatever.
And of course, you just alerted hundreds of Amazon Echoes and Alexa and
Well, I
Google
could have had them tune into my stations.
You could have, yeah. So we're going to talk to Shane about that here. Chris Toben's thoughts about this. And this has been a hot topic, and I'm glad. I'm actually glad to cover it yet again with some even newer thinking and some statistics that Shane has uncovered. So, hey, you're watching This Week in Radio Tech. It's episode 455 with Kirk Harnack, Chris Toben, and Shane Toven. And we're going to continue in just a minute with stories from Shane. Hang on.
The Aaron 655 is the latest addition to the Inovonics family of rebroadcast receivers, designed specifically for FM broadcast translators, also referred to as relay transmitters. The Aaron 655 is unique as an uncompromising DSP-based HD radio and FM receiver combined with a powerful 3-band audio processor and dynamic RDS encoder. IP connectivity adds streaming capabilities, and a web browser interface gives you total remote control of the unit from any PC or mobile device. The Aaron 655 gives you maximum flexibility for program sources. Select program audio from analog FM, digital channels HD1 through 8, streaming sources, and analog or AES digital line inputs, all with assignable failover audio backup. The internal RDS encoder allows you to customize your RDS messaging. You can use incoming off-air RDS data, convert HD radio pad data to RDS, convert streamed metadata to RDS, or receive IP telnet data. Comprehensive audio processing includes gated and windowed AGC, a unique syllabic leveler, 3 bands of compression, and both wideband and independent HF limiting. Easy setup is achieved by using 10 factory presets and 10 customizable presets. The processor also supports day parting, allowing automatic preset changes to follow different programming formats throughout your broadcast day. The front panel has an OLED display and jog wheel with intuitive menus for easy setup, advanced control, and editing for all operating parameters. The Aaron 655 dynamic web interface gives you total remote control of the unit from any PC or mobile device. A comprehensive set of menus includes a quick overview of now playing info, input-output control, processor options, RDS encoder, alarms and notifications, SNMP settings, and much more. You can also listen to the live audio broadcast streamed through the web interface.
Check out the 55 from Inovonics and the other cool Inovonics products. Chris, at NAB, you told me about another Inovonics product that has been really popular that you're familiar with. What was that product that's so cool? Was it a Sophie? Was that it?
Oh, the Sophie, yeah, the RDS, the HD radio. Yes. Actually, that's really cool. That's a really cool.
Yeah.
I think, Bruce Wall over at NPR, PRSS, I hope I get that right, was talking about it, and I believe he's using it for one of his experimental FM stations for RDS and metadata for the Metapub project at NPR.
Yep.
Well, I got to tell you, the folks. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As I say, I've played with the Sophia as well. It's got some really cool stuff. I mean, the two of the biggest features are probably it does AOIP, Dante natively, but it'll also do AES 67. And the biggest one is probably that it has some pretty comprehensive analysis of the artist experience data, which is something that's kind of a black hole for a lot of users. They push these images out there, and they don't really know that they're getting out there to their listeners. And now they can actually see on the Sophia that they're when they're being sent and the quality of the data, and just verify that it's all getting out there.
So, Matt, no matter which Inovonics product is cool to you, and I've been using their products for a long time, like since 1981. I think I bought a Map 2. So check them out and get them from Broadcasters General Store, because they are our sponsor along with Inovonics on this show. BGS.cc is the website, BGS.cc, or call them. I just called them today. I talked to Chris Shute today and also to Carly, and you can call them at 352-622-7700. 352-622-7700. Amazing folks. Great place to do business with. All right. We're talking with Chris Toben and Shane Toven today on This Week in Radio Tech. Shane, let's jump right into it. Which topic you want to handle first? I threw out a couple there early. What's hot on your mind right now?
Well, like I said, the one that I brought up earlier was of course smart speakers. But let's just back up a little bit. Let's zoom out and just talk about the state of broadcasters, especially radio broadcasters, and adoption or lack of adoption of current technology. I mean, there are some, and I guess I could see with this argument as well. There are some who would argue that especially the radio broadcast industry tends to lag about 30 years behind the rest of the technology industry, and it's time for that to change. Otherwise they're just going to slowly die. And granted, technology is only part of the equation. We all know that the content has to be there as well. But that's kind of my opening thoughts on this.
So in some, it used to be like 100 years ago, radio was the leader in technology. And I know that in the last 20 years, the internet has come along and brought amazing things to us through IP, Internet Protocol technology. Where do you see radio really lacking, and what's the low-hanging fruit that broadcasters can do to catch up and be more technologically relevant without sacrificing folks who just want to listen to the radio?
Sure. Well, I think first of all, focusing on your facilities and treating them more like what they actually are in this day and age, treating them like technology facilities. If you look at any data center that's been built in the last 20, 30 years, you see they're all very nicely built, rows and rows of racks, proper cooling, proper electrical systems. Most radio facilities aren't like that. And, it's to your benefit to do that. And it doesn't take a ton of money to actually make these kinds of changes. I mean, you could take what you've got and just, at the very least, make it as robust as you possibly can. So that's one of the things that I see a lot that always kind of catches my eye.
So you're saying facilities aren't built with an eye toward enough robustness or backup, but try to pinpoint that a bit more for me. What do you when you visit broadcasters? And I realize that most of your visits are for your own company, but what do you see that people specifically could be implementing?
Well, I mean, I start looking at things like, your broadcast facility is an IT facility, whether you like it or not. Okay, yeah, you may have analog consoles, you may have other analog infrastructure, but I mean, at the very least, make it maintainable, make it expandable. I walk into so many facilities, or I have in the past, I've walked into so many facilities where it's just such a rat's nest. It's just not sustainable. Anybody who comes in there to try and work on things, it's just impossible. I mean, you have to rip the whole thing out and start over. So start by treating your facility, like there's money flowing through these facilities. Start treating it like the critical part of your infrastructure that it is.
This is a common theme that Chris Toven brings up. There's money flowing through here. Let's make it right. And I don't have much other industry to compare this to. In American Samoa, for example, it's gotten a lot better, but it used to be that our internet would go out frequently. And my business partner, Larry Fuss, would often say, well, probably someone actually tripped over an extension cord and unplugged the router. And, so I'm wondering, do other industries have this problem of some of the older facilities are just horrible rat's nests of wires and are barely hanging together with baling wire and twine and chewing gum? Chris?
Oh yeah, there are other industries. I've worked in a couple of facilities where co-located with other industries and gone into their mechanical rooms or IT infrastructure, but mechanical rooms especially, and noticed some stuff that's really outdated and old. I'm like, wow, I'm surprised you guys are still able to cool the office or you're able to manufacture. It's prevalent in many industries. I wouldn't say that broadcast is the only one. We're closest to it. It impacts our daily lives. But the problem we're running into is probably more epidemic now than ever before because it's the attitude of the business acumen, the business thinking. I mean, I've worked with broadcast groups, where the top had vision and was just like chomping at the bit to make sure we were always the top dog in the market. That attitude has changed. Being the top dog in the market means, I just bought 6 podcast companies and we now have an ad service that we can control. No, that's not being top dog in the market. Yeah. That's just owning some widgets that help you to maybe keep yourself alive. top dog in the market is when somebody says your name and they go, yeah, I know who you are and I've used your stuff. You could do that in the automobile industry. You can do that in computers. You can even do it in radio. Go to any major market. There's at least one legacy station that you just mention their name and the person can rattle off the history of things about the station. And you sit there going, how much did they pay you for that? They didn't. They grew up on it because it was something that was part of their life. That thinking is what's missing. So to Shane's point, if your facility is 20 years old and it looks 20 years old and functions like a 20-year-old facility, then don't complain that you're not making revenue because you've left money on the table. Think about it. Does it cost? Sure. If you don't do preventive maintenance on any product, whether it's a transmitter, your car, or your home heating system, when it does fail, it's going to be 3 times the cost of ownership than it should be because you didn't keep up with the times. It's like updating your computer. You know how many people I've worked with recently where they will not update their computers running major automation equipment. I'm like, guys, you need to update. I know it's a pain. I know you don't like the idea, but did you plan in the ability to switch systems so that you can update one and keep the other one live and check it and verify it? No. Okay. And you single threaded yourself into trouble.
I got to believe that the grousing that the three of us are doing right now on this topic is because we love radio and we want to see it continue and thrive and keep up with the times, or even in some ways be a pace setter for technology and for providing entertainment and content. And so it bothers us. It really hurts when we see broadcasters that are still stuck in 1965 and it's just a real mess. And we've been in there. So let's turn our heads and our thinking toward the positive, because I do see a lot of positive out there. And I got to tell you, my limited experience with the company that Shane currently works for, and that's Educational Media Foundation. One of the transmitter sites, or actually now 2 of the transmitter sites that I kind of responsible for, or I've got some gear in. They are now occupied by EMF transmitters and programming. And what I've seen EMF take really good care and make some amazing and important improvements at these sites. Shane, I'm guessing that you have learned from your employer, but you've both attitudinally and how to do things right, and they've probably given you an opportunity to do the things right, or to make the recommendations for reliability and technological improvements that will keep them on the air and sounding good. Am I right about that?
Oh, absolutely. Our one of the things that kind of that you hear quite a bit is doing the right thing the right way for the right reason. And we have we have a lot of opportunities to do that, thankfully. The other thing that's important is kind of identifying what works, setting some standards, and sticking to them. And there's a lot to draw from for that. And again, it's not something that that has to be about money. It's just about consistency, maintainability, expandability, and just the overall sustainability of a plant. So.
That's true.
So, so I've seen EMF come in and replace an FM antenna that was working with, but they didn't know much about it. They didn't know its history, with one that they knew all about, because they know that without that antenna working well and being free of trouble, then they're not on the air. And then also replacing a working but somewhat old transmitter with a brand new transmitter that was more energy efficient and would definitely require less attention from a person to keep it running. And then installing program input equipment, PIE, as they often call it in other countries, not so much here in the U.S., but program input equipment that has redundancies and failover built into it, so that with a minimal investment, you've got a very good chance of continuing to be on the air through internet or satellite outages and that kind of thing, that the station can at least stay on the air. Is that what you also experienced, Shane?
Yeah, exactly. It's about making things as robust as you can with the resources that you have available to you. And some broadcasters are going to have certain resources available. Others aren't. But still, even with a minimal budget, you still can build robustness into your system and make it, more like those points I talked about earlier, more maintainable, sustainable, expandable. You don't have to. And have a lot less downtime as a result, quite frankly.
Let's push the smart speaker conversation off till after the next break and continue on this. I'm really curious, Shane. You visit a lot of transmitter sites, and a lot of them look like they're pretty lonely. What do you find wrong? What's some of the typical things that you find wrong? That, man, I'm glad I showed up to take care of this because this was going to take us off the air. And then I'll get to my other question later. What kind of things do you find wrong at infrequently visited sites?
Sure. Well, at a minimum, I get to my sites once a year. We have annual inspections, and that's just a given. It happens. Fortunately, a lot of my other sites, I have some really good contractors that go around to it more frequently than that, some as often as once a month, which I'm really thankful for. I've got some amazing contracts. I'm really blessed from that in that regard. But some of the things that you can find at sites when you go into a site, well, for example, a big one is UPSs and UPS batteries. So somebody once told me, what's the only thing less reliable than a generator? A UPS. And there's some truth to that. You really have to keep a close eye on them, maintain them, make sure that their batteries are working. Hey, pull the plug. When you visit the site, make sure it still holds the load up for a good 30 minutes or so. So that's a big one. The other one is just basic environmental type stuff. Has the site is the cooling failed? Is the site getting hot? And of course, you should know this beforehand because you get temperature sensors that'll tell you when things are starting to heat up. But sometimes you happen to catch it in the act before something else has alerted you to it. And also things like filters, air filters. Some of these sites get really just dusty and dirty, and even the best sites, sometimes you'll get things like bug ingress and rodents and things like. Hopefully not, but it does happen, and then you have to figure out the source of the problem and try to address it. But that sort of thing. That's the common stuff you usually find at sites.
Do rodents, snakes, and other vermin live at 10,000 feet altitude? Really?
I've been warned about snakes. I have yet to actually see a snake at one of my sites. I saw one crossing the road once, but occasionally I'll see a little critter out there, but not nearly as frequently. But it does happen. Biggest one is probably insects getting into buildings that are not that don't have proper air handling and filtering. And boy, that really can make a mess. So,
can positive pressurization of a building actually keep insects out? Does that make it a pain for them?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I always recommend, if possible, you figure out a way to do a lot of filtering on your air inlet and positively pressure that building. I mean, that door should just pop open when you try to open the thing. And that helps with the dust. It helps with insects. As they say, a clean transmitter is a happy transmitter. And I agree with that.
I'm amazed that you have some sites that get visited as infrequently as once a year. Wow. What kind of power level, what kind of transmitters do these kind of sites typically have?
That's usually the exception. I mean, obviously we try to get somebody out to these sites a lot more frequently than that. But power levels, you're usually talking like some of them may be as simple as a little 100-watt translator. Others may be, a couple kilowatts. But most of the really big sites get visited a little more often. But then again, especially with older tube transmitters, they're the ones that tend to require a little more attention as well. So. So working with a company like EMF, and I'm sure they try to standardize in a lot of ways, so they have the same things and can anticipate the same kind of failures across their system. But do you end up dealing with a large variety of transmitter styles and brands? It depends. Again, it depends on the power level. It depends on the site, the market, things like that. So it's always a constant process of evaluation in terms of upgrades and what goes where and things like that. And it's like any other engineering operation. You constantly have to. I mean, there are only so many dollars to go so far, and you have to constantly evaluate where those dollars go and where you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Thinking about a visit you may have made in the last year or so, is there one that stands out like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I got here because I don't know, this mongoose was about to destroy the site, or rats were going to chew through the wiring, whatever it might be. Is it something that stands out as being pretty dramatic?
Oh my goodness, let me think. Well, again, we had one site. I mean, a lot of these are sites that are leased. You're just a tenant in the site, so you're kind of at the mercy of the landlord and maintenance. For site maintenance and things like that. Came into one site where the light fixtures had fallen off of the ceiling.
Oh, gosh.
Ice had fallen off of the tower, hit the roof, and knocked the light fixtures loose from the ceiling. I went, ooh, this is not good. So I ended up having to replace the light fixtures. These, obviously the fluorescent tube light fixtures, so mess of everything everywhere. So I had to replace those. I replaced them with some LEDs and cleaned things up and started looking at the roof, looking at what needed to be done there. I mean, it didn't look like there was any major damage to the roof, but it's time to start thinking about an ice bridge at that site for the building.
Chris, I don't know how you feel about this, but at my house, I'm almost entirely LED lights. A few exceptions where it matters, and it's tough not to be a dad and go around and turn out lights, from the kids and stuff. But I really find that I don't worry about it because, hey, wait a minute, if I leave all those lights on, it's going to cost me 4.5 cents this month, right? So I don't worry about it so much anymore. Do you leave lights on at transmitter sites if they're all LED?
Usually I don't leave lights on at transmitter sites. I might leave an exterior light on just to kind of discourage, vandals or things like that. I mean, that's generally not a huge problem out in my territory because these sites are so remote. Somebody really has to want to get out there and has to know where it's at. But even with LEDs, I usually shut the lights off before I go. I mean, it's not like the transmitter is going to get lonely in the dark. Well, maybe it does. I don't know.
One more before we take a quick break, and that is we saw a really sad story from KRMG in Tulsa about copper thieves, and a thief died in the act, was apparently electrocuted. Another one was shocked and in very bad shape, and the poor accomplice girl, young lady, was taken into custody and may be charged with murder because apparently that's the way the law works there and a lot of other places. Is copper theft a problem at your sites?
Thankfully, to this point, not at any of the sites that I watch over, but it's always a concern, and you always have to be conscious of security at sites and things like that. So. But like I said, the one saving grace is that a lot of these sites are so remote. A, you have to know where they are, and B, you have to really want to get there. So.
Wow. I was thinking, is there some other metal we could use? But, copper's, even though it's valuable, it's about the cheapest thing that does the job really well. I guess we couldn't switch to gold. That wouldn't work too well. Or silver either. Chris, has copper theft been an issue in the Northeast in your area?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Matter of fact, I can tell you from firsthand experience many years ago, working here in New York City at a AM station where the ground system was copper radials. While our tower painters were on the tower, they were looking down and noticed small boats coming up on shore. This is a transmitter site that's an island. And they were curious, and they were starting to watch people, and they realized, oh, they're tearing up the dirt. They didn't know what was going on at first until one of the guys at the ground radioed up to the supervisor and said, I think they're pulling wires out of the ground. This could be a problem. And they contacted us, and then we said, yes, that's absolutely a problem. We'll contact the police, and if you'd be so kind just to stay away from them and continue painting. And if you happen to splash anything on the ground, feel free to just leave it, since it's an island and there's nobody else there but the transmitter building, and that's it. So the painting and stuff started to scare them, I guess. But the police arrived, and that was it. But yeah, it's in parts of New Jersey we've had folks. I know I've talked to engineers who've had that problem also. People taking out the copper. Yeah, that's everywhere. I'm sure if we called around, we could probably get a full hour's worth of stories about copper radials being pulled out of the ground.
We did a whole TWiRT show on this topic a few years ago, and you know what? If I remember, I'll put it in the show notes. The link to that show with some ideas on this, especially in an area that's known for drug, especially meth production. So there enough people that really want to steal this stuff, but some good ideas on helping to at least prevent that or get the thieves caught. So, hey, on that unhappy note, you are watching or listening to This Week in Radio Tech. It's our 455th episode. I'm Kirk Harnack, along with Chris Toven, and Shane Toven is with us. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about smart speakers. And this is a point that, man, we just can't push home too much. We're seeing more and more and more listenership to the point where it is significant for a lot of broadcasters. And it's something that, as an engineer, you can hold your company back, or they may go on without you, or you can be part of the real progress in broadcasting, making sure that your signal, that your content, that your audio is right out there, easily available to those who would like to listen to it or watch whatever metadata is along with it. So that's key. It's important, and making sure it sounds great and is easy to get to is really important too, because it's more than just pushing a button on a dash-mounted AM radio these days. Hey, our show, This Week in Radio Tech, is brought to you in part by my friends at Angry Audio. And I got to show you, Angry Audio, as was discussed on a previous show just a few back, is now in the business of supplying these RJ45 adapters. Now, some people call these dongles, but the company Radio Systems, makers of the former Studio Hub brand, those have always been referred to as cable adapters. And so they have, different styles, and we've gotten used to using these. And people were using these whether your facility was wiring up for audio over IP or not. These were popular before AOIP came along. And when AOIP came along, one of the first people to make AOIP systems, my employer, the Telos Alliance, they just jumped straight on that standard. What people call the Studio Hub standard by default. It's a great standard for moving either a stereo analog audio or AES digital audio over Cat5 cables, and then using these adapters to plug into things like CD players or even reel-to-reel tape machines, whatever you had to plug into or get audio into or out of, and then carry it over Cat5 cable. Well, Angry Audio started making these adapters, and then Radio Systems announced they were closing their doors. So I can just tell you this: call your favorite dealer and ask for the Studio Hub compatible adapters from Angry Audio. They're available. A lot of them are shipping now. And here's what's really interesting. The adapters that are made by Angry Audio are actually made in the exact same factory by the same people who made the Studio Hub brand adapters. So I happen to have some Studio Hub brand adapters in my hands right here. That's why they say Studio Hub on them. But these exact, I'm not going to say the same adapters, but they're made by the same people in the same factory with the same materials. So, you be the judge. They're available from Angry Audio and from your favorite Angry Audio dealer. You go to the website, angryaudio.com, and see the selection of these, see the pricing for them, check them out there. And they've got, all your favorite stuff. Also, I want you to watch the space for some more announcements from Angry Audio, because they have some really cool things to announce coming up. Check it out, angryaudio.com. And we'll be right back after this word from our friends at CalRec.
TWiRT is CalRec's first native IP-based mixing console. It is fully AES67 and NMOS ISO4 and ISO5 compatible as defined by SMPTE 2110. Connectivity via Cat5e utilizing COT switches, and power to the surface is supplied via standard PoE switches to minimize cabling. Its 2U core has integrated I/O, so you're instantly up and running, and it can power up to 3 independent mixing environments, each with their own separate DSP resources. TWiRT's surface is modular and expandable, consisting of 3 slimline panels, each of which are user-definable with layouts saved and recalled quickly between shows. It's available in 4 DSP packs, and as your station grows, larger packs can be added, making TWiRT the most flexible radio console you can buy. Find out more at calrac.com/TWiRT.
Thanks a lot to CalRec for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech, and do check them out at calrec.com/TWiRT. When you use the /TWiRT, that'll let them know that you came here because you heard it right here. We'd appreciate it. Helps us out a lot. It's This Week in Radio Tech with Kirk Harnack, Chris Tobin, and Shane Toven. It's episode 455, and Chris and I are talking to Shane about a few topics, and we want to move, I'd like to move on into the topic that Shane's been interested in and researching here for a while, and that is smart speakers. Shane, I would imagine that my impression of the typical listener to the company that you work for, EMF, they are owners of the brands K-Love and Air One. And if you're in broadcasting, you've heard of these. They're all across the country in most markets. And you can find Christian programming, Christian music from these stations. And if I'm not mistaken, Shane, there is a typical listener that PDs are programming to, and it's a lady named Becky, and she has 2 kids and a husband. Am I kind of right about that? Is that a myth?
There may be some truth to that. I tend to stick to the engineering side rather than the programming side, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'll use Becky as an example here, and slightly tongue in cheek, but also I've heard this talked about in Christian music circles, that so you're programming to someone typified as Becky, and again, it's not stereotypical, but that's the core audience here, and Becky has not only one but maybe several smart speakers. I mean, the Harnack family in our house, I think we've got 5 smart speakers, and we're not doing everything we can with them. But you know what? My son, who is 2, he doesn't have a phone yet. He's 9 years old. He doesn't dial a phone yet, but he can tell she who shall not be named what number to dial. And so he calls his cousin all the time. They talk for hours over the Amazon Echo because it will call phone numbers. And so, and of course, we use it to bring up radio stations all the time in our household. There are some that are on there right now, to fool burglars and think we're home. So tell me about your journey into smart speakers and the people that are listening to EMF stations this way.
Well, one thing I hear it promoted on the air constantly, and you'd think broadcasters, okay, why would you want to promote some other technology on the air? Isn't radio your bread and butter? Well, your transmitter is still a critical part of your distribution mechanism, but more and more, and we saw this when streaming was first introduced as well. And this is just a much easier method for accessing streaming audio. We're seeing people, just accessing things via their smart speakers. It has become the new home radio, basically, in a lot of homes. So you're seeing definitely an increase in that. And those of you who maintain your web streams, if you look at your logs, you will most definitely see that the agent that's accessing your streams is quite often, one of these smart speakers.
So we've done other shows on smart speakers, and if you think about, Shane, the attributes that a broadcaster needs to think about when thinking about their outreach, their streaming outreach, and then specifically narrowing in on smart speakers, since it's so easy to access or could be hard to find your station, the station that you want to promote on a smart speaker. What things does a broadcaster need to have in place to make sure they're accessible and they sound good?
Sure. Well, sound good is an excellent point, and that's always been a good point for streaming. You really want to pay attention to the audio quality of your stream. And granted, the audio quality of these various smart speakers, it varies. You've got some devices that are really, really tiny. You've got some that are, in fact, whole home entertainment systems where the whole house is wired for smart speaker response. So you definitely want to pay attention to the audio processing on your stream. Make sure that it is, don't push it as aggressively as you would on the air. I mean, this could get into a whole other discussion, but I wanted to bring it up because it is important to smart speakers as well. So you would process it just, for kind of a happy medium between those low fidelity, really small devices and the higher end devices that might have a little bit more low frequency response. So that's one aspect of things that you really should be paying attention to. Yeah, no, just tagging off of your on-air processor and, and say good enough. It's really not good enough anymore. So the other thing that you want to pay attention to is how easy it is to access your station's streams through these devices, and several ways to do that. One of the more common is through aggregators that have already picked up the stream. For instance, TuneIn was a big one for quite some time. I know there have been some issues with TuneIn recently for some people, but that was one way that these smart speakers could access the any radio station stream. If they happened to be listed on TuneIn, smart speaker already knew about TuneIn, and it already knew how to access various stations from TuneIn. So that's one way to do it. The other way. And there's also iHeartRadio. So a lot of iHeart stations are already there. There are some other groups that have tagged onto iHeart's system as well. So that's another mechanism. I know, for instance, I could say, play such and such from iHeartRadio, and it'll go ahead and play that. And then the other way to address this, and this is where it gets a little bit complicated, but it's also the best way to make sure that your station is accessible on these various devices without being at the mercy of these third-party aggregators. I know Amazon, for instance, calls them skills. So you'd want to develop a skill for the smart speaker so that it can easily access your station. So when you say, "Hey, she who should not be named," play, whatever your station's slogan is or whatever your station's call letters are, it knows how to find you, and without any other action on your part. I mean, before this kind of stuff was really getting common, I used to spend several minutes trying to find the right keywords that would actually play the station I wanted. I mean, it would come up with all sorts of other stations other than the one that I wanted to play, and that was just frustrating to no end. So you don't want your listeners to kind of be experiencing that frustration. So
I know what you mean about finding the right keywords to say. I mean, I'm wearing today a shirt, I'll show it here, that if you can't see it, it says Star 94.3. And this is the little station that 40 owners own on the island of Kauai. And it's on, most people find it via TuneIn. And none of our stations have we done skills for. We have depended upon TuneIn as the aggregator or the finder of our streams. I've submitted the streams to a lot of different places, but I always try to make it such that if you ask for the call letters, and I realize the public may not always know the call letters, but if I ask for the call letters, I almost always get the right station. But if I ask for Star 94.3, sometimes I'll get it, but sometimes I'll get another Star 94.3. And I don't know if there's an algorithm that's figuring out where I likely am. If I'm in Hawaii, hopefully that's the one that would play for me. It's the only one in Hawaii. What do you know about that? Is there any geolocation from where the person is asking?
Yeah, sure. And that's been another issue, even back to the streaming from like computers and mobile devices. What it'll do in a lot of cases is try to geolocate via your IP address. I'll give an example. Wyoming Public Radio, when I was working for Wyoming Public Radio, National Public Radio had a system where it would geolocate you to your closest member station when you asked it to play NPR, right? Well, since Laramie was so close to the Colorado border, oftentimes I would get Colorado. It was about a 50-50 shot whether I would get Colorado or whether I would get Wyoming. So, but I think the algorithms are, in fact, getting more intelligent about that, especially with someone like Amazon that already knows your physical location, so it doesn't really need to use IP geolocation.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Chris, a big outfit like EMF, I'll bet EMF has, a lot of full-time people that are on this. Your client that you work for in Newark, not so many people as a big outfit like EMF. How do you guys handle making sure that people can find you when they ask for WBGO?
Oh, well, we basically have a marketing department, a team of several individuals that are constantly doing social media. We anything we print and promote on the radio or on the stream. Well, the stream is the radio, but we will sometimes drop in material strictly to the stream, and that's our part of our promoting the marketing of the brand. I mean, the thing to think of today is, you're still a radio station. Okay, do not deny the fact that you're a radio station. It's perfectly normal. It's okay. You can say you're a radio station. What you need to do is create the image around your content so that people feel like they're being left out. They want to be part of something. How do I get it? Oh, you can get it by stream. You can get it by smart speaker. You can get it by the FM or AM dial. Or maybe you can get it off the secondary channel of a TV station, HD, in your market you've made an agreement with. That's how you need to look at it. And that's where you create the strength in the business. So don't get caught up in this, naming everything or looking at it from the standpoint of, well, Becky and the 2 kids and the wife that has toast in the morning is the only thing we should be thinking about. It's like, well, that's a guideline. Now let's look at their life. What are they doing in their life? What is mom doing at 9 o'clock in the morning? She just got the kids off to school. So what's her mindset going to be? I doubt it's going to be your station, which is a rock and roll music station. So don't think that way. These are things that require all departments at a radio station to come together on. But as far as getting the message out, you've got to treat it just like the Coca-Cola and Pepsi and everybody else does with their product. Put it in front of everybody with every means that you have. So wherever you are, if you're out during an outside broadcast or even an appearance with your announcers, make sure the material that you have is relevant to the crowd. So when they take it away with them, you don't want them to look at it at the moment that you're there with them and go, oh, wow, this is cool. You want them to take that with them, put it in their pocket, in their purse, in their whatever, and take it home. And when they get home and after the hours of drinking, they're done, they wake up and go, what was I doing? Oh, yeah, I remember these guys. That moment, that split second that your product paperwork, whatever you want to call it, a button, whatever, is in their face, in front of them, they know what they remembered. They go back and they'll go looking for you. Or when the topic comes up, they go, oh, yeah, you want to do jazz? Call these guys. That is what you need to be the goal. And if you're not looking at that, go backwards from that thinking, and everything you've got is wrong. I mean, to Shane's point, I mean, you gotta, what is your content? In the case of what I'm doing, I work with a jazz radio station, so we're music, but we're not just music, because I can get music on this device. I'm holding up a smartphone. That's not the point. The point is I can't find out what's in between the music. Like we have recently, we have hosting hours. So that's one of our things that you can donate to the station. We're listener funded. So, listeners will donate money for an hour of their programming of jazz music and working with one of the announcers. So they actually get on the radio. It doesn't come cheap, but it gives you an opportunity to actually participate in what you've loved and enjoyed and what's in it for me, right? That's what you get. And we also have celebrities who come in. Maybe you've heard the name of an actor named Michael Shannon. He's come by a couple of times and said, hey, you know what? I like what you guys do. I love it. I've been listening for years. I just want to have some fun. Here's some money. Don't worry about how it's being whatever. Just let's have some fun. Done. That's the feeling you need to bring out. And that's what the smart speaker can do for you. That's what the stream can do for you. Maybe other methods of getting out to the audience. And as engineers, where's it relevant to us, right? What's the point? So what? You're talking this out. We need to understand that so that we can take that technology and bring it to the programmers, to the editors or whatever, and say, hey, guys, check this out. Here's what's going on. You might be able to fit this in. If not, so be it. But if there is something there, let's sit down and talk. Because they're not going to know. I mean, I've worked with programming because a friend of mine's a top-notch program consultant, and there are times he has technical questions. He'll drop me an email and go, I have no idea what this means, but one of my clients is talking about it. I'm like, oh, yeah, it's this, 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 and this. And I'll never hear back, and all of a sudden back, oh, my God, I cannot believe that thing does this. We just did this. The campaign worked. They're making money and the ratings are up. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be in your organization. Yep.
Chris, you just touched on an excellent series of points that I can sum up in one word: relationship. It's about it's about the station's brand and the station's relationship with its listeners. It's about the relationship between various departments in the station, engineering, programming, and just forming those and making them solid so that again, you can meet your listeners exactly where they are and that they will keep coming back to you because you've built that brand, you've built that relationship, and they want to come back and find you. They want to, they see something different than what they can get on Spotify, for example. I mean, you can listen to music for hours on end from Spotify, but what you don't get is you don't get that unique personality and that unique relationship that you have with your station.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And you know what? If you wanted proof of the pudding, you go back in history, radio history. History is good sometimes to learn and understand so you don't repeat the pitfalls. But if you remember the good guys, the All-Americans, the boss jocks, it was based on successful, not that they were big powered stations, 50 kilowatt AMs or FMs. because they had a relationship. Maybe you've heard the name, Charlie Tuna, or maybe you heard Dan Ingram, Ron Lundy.
Yeah.
Names, many of the audience may, who the hell is that? Go look it up and find out. And you look at a history of relationships. Chuck Leonard, New York City as well. So, there's Shotgun Tom Kelly is another one that people are probably like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know him. I've seen him at the NAB. But it's relationship, and that's key. I worked at an all-news station. We had relationships with a lot of our audience. Trust me, get in a cab and you're listening to your radio station, and the guy goes, "You ever hear this station?" I'm like, "Yeah, I work there." You worked what? You work with? You know John Montone? That's the relationship element, and that's key, and that's what Shane is right. That's what it's about.
One thing, quick aside, I happen to notice, I believe, if I'm not wrong, today is Shotgun Tom Kelly's birthday. So happy birthday, Shotgun.
Yeah,
Kelly.
Absolutely.
And one thing about, and far be it from engineers to know a lot about branding, I worked at a rock station in the 1980s that tried to change the brand, to try to change the name that people called them. And after every single time a jock opened his mouth on the station, they gave the new slogan. After 3 years, they did some small group studies, and not one person referred to the station by the 3-year-old slogan. Everybody referred to it by the pre-3-year-old slogan. And it wasn't the whole call letters. I'll tell you what station was. It was 98 Rock Double Q. And everybody knew the double Q. What are the call letters? I don't know. It's double Q. That was it. And so the trying to change what people called it was futile. So I would think that a station like that, and again, I'm not in marketing, I don't know, but if I could say, she who shall not be named, play double Q, oh my gosh, that would be just great for them. Now, I would think that Shane's employer that has K-Love and Air One, these are nationwide brands, and you should be able to ask for one of those. It's a little more difficult, I think, with like a station, Chris, your station. Everybody has known it for years on the air as WBGO, and maybe they have a sub slogan. But what do you ask for your station, Chris, to get her to play it?
Oh, well, let's see. We've been experimenting with a couple of things. Jazz 88 has been our big one. BGO Jazz 88. There's been a couple of in incarnations. It's the good thing is with some of the smart speaker skills and the way things are working. When you just say the word jazz or any of that stuff, we come up in a listing, so it's not just a one. We don't lose out to somebody else. So it's not easy all the time, but the idea is the relationship we have with our audience, and it's really strong, is they know to put in what they want. So the folks that we don't know us, that happen chance because they happen to use the word jazz, they find us, that's great, then we try and hold on to them. But for the most part, most of our audience, they know who we are, they know how to find us, and that's what's key. And I think that's what's important, is build a relationship before they make it to that little electronic device and say, okay, now that you got it, now you know who we are, you can find us much easier than just generically throwing something out there. And I think that's important. That's why I'm saying we as engineers, technology people, need to understand how it works within the business. I know I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. It's a business. At the end of the day, I get frustrated when I go to places that look like a schleppy place. I'm like, what are you doing, man? You're leaving money on the table. I'm a radio nut. I'm passionate about radio and TV and content creation. I love, all that stuff. It's just something about it just energizes the mind. But when you watch people who are charged with doing it and then just leave it, languishing, like, no, you got it all wrong. This is not the way it works. To your point, Kirk, let's change the legacy call letters in the slogan, because according to the consultants, this is a better deal. We've done some research, and the focus groups point out that people know it better. Really? I worked at a station, did exactly, Kirk, what you said. They went from the legacy name to a new name because the consultants and the programming folks know it's important. We need to change it so we can get a different audience for better, ratings. Well, let's see. We went to 2 Arbitron books. That's when the diaries were still in use, and the ratings didn't change. They decided to go down to Maryland to see how the diaries were written in. And you know what? 100% of the diary entries were the legacy slogan, even though we had been using the new slogan for almost 9 months. They couldn't understand why the ratings didn't shift. And it's like, guys, you don't get it. You don't have the relationship. And then we had our AM sister station, daytime only, who was programmed by a former Good Guys DJ. So he knew about relationships. And he did very well. They never changed the slogan. He tried to change it. He said no. He goes, matter of fact, I won't even say the slogan. We'll just say the call is at the top of the hour and remind people where they are, and that's it. And they got a 3.5 share, daytime only. Our FM, 1.7, 24 hours a day.
Wow. Hey guys, we're
So
running.
it's a relationship.
Yeah. We're running shy on time. I'll tell you what, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I'd like for each of you to give us either your tip of the week or the one question we didn't get time to ask. Maybe you can answer it quickly with a bullet point or two. As an engineer, what is the number one way you can help your organization's marketing department or PR, whoever handles getting smart speakers to be effective? Sure, you may handle the audio quality. What can you bring in from the field, and how can you help the marketing people or whoever's in charge of skills, whatever it may be, how you can help them to do the best job they can so that they don't stub their toe on this and lose out listeners because they can't find you. So either one of those, we'll be right back after this word from Lavo.
There has probably never been a better time in history to buy a new radio mixing console. Today's consoles are more sophisticated than ever, with more features and functions than you can shake a stick at. But have you noticed how complicated they are? There's a sea of knobs and switches and displays and buttons. Some of them look like you might need a pilot's license to do your show. Well, a board doesn't have to be complicated to be powerful. Just look at the new Ruby mixing surface from Lavo. The first thing you notice is how smooth and streamlined it is. Ruby has lots of cool tech, but what it doesn't have is that confusing ocean of buttons that clutter things up. Now, we all know that there are some console features the jock only uses once in a while, so why dedicate controls to them? Ruby fixes this problem by moving those once-in-a-blue-moon controls to a touch-sensitive, customizable GUI that happily shares screen space with your other studio software, helping you fight control room clutter. Thanks to this design innovation, talent that use Ruby produce smoother shows with less errors. Controls that are used the most fall naturally to hand, while functions that rarely need adjustment are easily controlled with just a couple of clicks in the context-sensitive GUI. And Ruby has cool features you won't find on other boards, like Auto Mix, an intelligent gain writing function that guarantees the perfect mix for multi-mic morning shows and call-in segments. Dual mode snapshots that instantly switch the motorized faders between on-air and production modes, and enough DSP and I/O options to make even your pro sound pals green with envy. And because quality is as important to Lavo as it is to you, every console is proudly built to fanatically precise standards at Lavo's own factory in Germany. If you're ready to declutter your control room, do yourself a favor. Check out the new Ruby and the other cool Lavo radio tech at www.lawo.com/TWiRT.
When you go there, check it out. Lavo.com/TWiRT. When you put the /TWiRT, it'll take you right to their radio products, and they'll know that you came here because you heard it here. Thanks a lot, Lavo. All right, I'm going to wrap things up here with Chris and Shane. And Chris, why don't you take it first? Either a tip or how you can best help people to get your smart speaker game on.
I'm not sure if I can offer really anything for the smart speaker on, because pretty much my participation in what we've been doing is just making sure the stream that you get sounds right and is suitable or tailored to the format of the receiving device, which in this case could be a small box or a home that's coming out of a small box into speakers. But I think the best thing I'm going to offer up is a tip, and the tip is, as Shane started the show with, we need to become relevant. The broadcast industry has fallen behind. I mean, TV is just as bad, so don't think we're the only ones. We're not the redhead stepchild. The trick is, we as the engineers, the technology folks, need to look at everything and go, does this make sense? Read up on it. I mean, you hear something wacky out there going on. Some station in the Netherlands is trying this thing they call XYZ Beco. It's like, what does it do? I don't know, but they're doing live broadcasts with it. Check it out. Maybe it's something you could be using. And then bring that to the table. Try and find your way into the station meetings at on a certain level so you get to understand what's going on. And then the smart speaker conversations come your way, or anything else, streaming and other things that are out there, you suddenly now can bring to the table some value. Because at the end of the day, remember two things. You're having fun, making money, and that's the key. And you got to do that. And if you can't make that relationship work, then nothing else is going to happen.
Good deal. Shane, either a tip or what you think that we can do to help promote people finding us on smart speakers.
Boy, Chris, I couldn't have summed it up any better. But I would say the first thought that comes to my mind to kind of sum up here is, don't be the curmudgeon. Don't be afraid to explore, to experiment, and make sure you have that seat at the table with the rest of the staff at your station, and just talk to them. Find out where they're at. Share with them your findings and what you're seeing in the industry. Talk to them about things like smart speaker skills, and find out what it takes to roll those out if they don't already have somebody who's doing that for them. But yeah, don't lose the curiosity. Don't be afraid to explore. And that's really the only way we're going to continue to find these advancements. Is just staying curious, not being a curmudgeon, and just continuing to move forward.
I think we found a show title here. Don't be the or that curmudgeon. I like it. It's too many engineers, including sometimes I have been. And that we don't need to be the curmudgeon. All right. Hey, we got to go. Gentlemen, this has been a great show. I appreciate it so much, you being here. I also want to have this fella say hi. Yeah, we had to get an alcohol-free drink for my son Michael in the monkey head here. So yeah. Oh, and he gets to take it off. And look, it's a bank. It's got a slot for being a bank. So there we go.
Nice.
There we go.
Have fun about sums it up.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Hey, I want to thank so much Shane Toven with EMF Broadcasting, Educational Media Foundation, and his good thoughts on this. Shane, I'd love to have you back on another show later on. Would you come back and see us sometime? All right. Good.
Absolutely.
Chris Toven, thank you for being with us from the New York area, from New York City today. Hope you feel better. Get rid of that whatever you got.
Yeah, it's just sinuses being clogged up. That's the usual. I've had that happen before. I'm feeling better. The headache's going away, so I'm good. I'll be good.
Good. All right. Hey, thanks a lot to Suncast, our producer on the show, and also thanks to Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. Next week, we're going to be live on location again. I'm going to be in Nebraska for the Nebraska Broadcasters Association conference. Going to give a talk there and meet a lot of cool folks. So we've got a great venue for doing our show next week. And so Chris Toven, hope we'll see you here next week, and we'll have some engineers as our guests on the show next week. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks to our sponsors. Please go see them and tell your friends about This Week in Radio Tech. And the website is thisweekinradiotech.com. Bye-bye, everyone.